Now let's work on the mark as read. The concept is going to be the same as we did with the start reading and started reading. As you see here, when they click the first time an update, it's going to capture that timestamp, and then we'll come back, we're going to see that date there. And we made sure that there's no way for them to, or users in this case, to go back and change that. It's just a preference to give the data more integrity. So for mark as read, the moment they mark as read, it should show something like this. Let's go ahead and do this, mark as read. I'm going to update. And it went away, of course. We go to the main, you can see now there it is, mark as read on May 18th, which is today. So that's the idea, because we don't want it to be anywhere near our main page because that's been read already. The first thing we need to do, let's look at the structure where we update. Let's go down here. Earlier what we did, we just ignore or commented out the finish reading, and we try to put the timestamp now, but then realize that's not even helpful. So I'm going to uncomment that. So this finished reading, it is the same as marked as read, by the way. So what we need to do here is, first of all, we need to check if is finished reading clicked is true or not. So essentially the same what we did here, right? Is reading clicked. If it's true, that means then we're going to get the timestamp right now. Else, we're just going to go ahead and get from our book object the start reading or started reading field. The same thing we are going to do for finished reading. So we're going to check if is finished reading clicked. If that's true, then of course that means we're going to pull that timestamp right now because they've just clicked finish reading. Else, we're going to do the same we did before. Invoke the widget, dot, get the book object, and then pass in the finished reading like that. Of course, this is going to complain because it doesn't know what that is because we never created. Let's go up here and create our finished reading, just like we had before. Say bool. It's always false in the beginning. Command click that to take us back to where we call it. Now we need to go back to the button here where the logic happens, right? When they click mark as read here, something needs to happen. Again, pretty much the same thing we had before. In our label here, we're going to check first for a few things. First, we're going to go ahead and check, go through our widget, get the book object. We're going to check if the finish reading is not null, or actually if that's true, it's null. Then we're going to maintain, in this case, we're going to show mark as read because nothing has happened with the finish reading, right? It's null, there's nothing that means they haven't finished reading this book. Else, in this case, we're going to pass in a text that say finished on. And then here we're going to pass the actual date because if this field here, finish reading, is not null, that means we have something from our database. That means we've already previously at some point marked this book as read, which means at that point we save that timestamp, which also means we should have something in our finish reading field. So I'm going to pull that and we're going to format it so that we can actually see that date. So I'm going to call the format date, and then I'm going to pass the object or the field that is. So widget, that book, that finished reading, like that. Now we also need to show something else, right? This text has to change depending on whether they clicked or not. Again, it's essentially the same what we had here. So we need to check that before we show the text, or we need to figure out when is it appropriate to show mark as read. Of course, when they haven't marked this book as read. But if they already have marked this book as read, this won't work, right? We need to change the text. So to do that, right here, I'm going to put another ternary operator here. I'm going to say is finished, it's not finished, or it's not true. Say it's finished, reading clicked. They haven't clicked on it, right? I'm going to just have this mark as read. Else, I'm going to just pass a new text that says finished reading, like this, to be a little bit dramatic. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and add a style, the color. Okay, so just to show that distinction there. This makes sense. Let's see if this works. Okay, let's go to the same book because we already started this. And if I click mark as read, nothing is happening. Well, nothing is happening because on pressed here, we haven't added anything. So you probably saw that. We need to add something there. What is that we're going to add? Well, the logic is going to be pretty much the same. We have to set this state of a finished reading, or in this case, I'm sorry, of is finished reading clicked, just like what we did here. All right. Okay, so that was my little mistake there. But also I want to make sure that I have the same thing we had here. I want to make it so that the pressed event or the press event here is disabled the moment they say marked as read, again, for integrity of the data. So again, we'll do the same thing as we did with this, with our started reading. Before this function, I'm going to say something like this, widget, and I'm going to get finished reading. If that is null, then all is good, right? We're going to have this nice event that we're going to be reading. Else, we're just going to make this unclickable, right? So now inside here, I'm going to set the state of our variable boolean, and I'm going to say if is finished, that one is false, that is true, then I'm going to just set is finished clicked there to true because that was clicked. Okay, else is finished is always going to be false. Again, we're just toggling this variable. Okay, now it should indeed work. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, let's click, and there we go. But we still have to do something. We need to update it. Remember, all happens once we update. So I could also change this to something else. Finished the book. It was great. Let's go ahead and update. Okay, that was clicked. And let's see if this works. And you can see here it says finish reading, and there is the date. Now, if I get out of this and come back to it, we should see indeed finished on May 18th. And we can no longer click this button either. All right, so this is working. This is exactly what we want to happen. So when they click starting reading, we capture that date, and then we show that date when they come back to change anything about the book they're reading, okay? And when they're finished, of course, we're going to capture that date as well and then show that date, so that way they can't even change it again. So you can, of course, put different logic there, but I think I like this because then you can't tamper with the data in a way. But again, this is just my preference. Very good. We're making good progress. And the next thing we're going to do is going to make sure that the moment this update is clicked, we want to get out of this window. So you know how to do this by now. All we do is, let's go back to our update, and right below there, I'm going to say navigator of and pop. Okay, that should do it. Now, one thing that I would like you to do, we've done this before, is I would like you to put that if statements just to make sure that only updates the fields that need updating. Remember, we did that with updating the user. So if you don't remember, just go back to a previous video to see. So essentially, we're going to put some if statements here for each field to make sure that the book data, the book class that we are passing here, and the fields, so if you go back, so to compare whatever is inside of these fields and with whatever is, of course, in the database or whatever the book object has. If they are different, then of course that will be changed. So we've seen this before. Before you go to the next video, spend some time and see if you can put together that logic here. All right, good luck, and I'll see you next video.